Toronto Skydome TSN presents Blue Jays baseball. Tonight, the Toronto Blue Jays play host to the Seattle Mariners. Hi again, welcome to Blue Jays baseball. I'm Jim Houston with Buck Martinez. Tonight, game 2 in this series. Didn't it seem like for the first month of the season, Roberto Alomar and Dave Winfield drove in all of the Blue Jays runs? Well, Alomar's now gone a week without an RBI, so I guess Kelly Gruber picked an opportune time to bump a slump and get 3 RBIs last night.
Well, Jim, we talked about the balance of this attack. If they're all swinging the bats the way they're capable of, you know, you think back to last year when it was the top third of the lineup doing most of the damage. But this year's a different story with Winfield in the lineup. Maybe Kelly Gruber can bounce back and approach those numbers he put up in 1990. 31 homers and 118 RBIs, and this will be an awfully tough lineup for the opposition to wade through.
Pitcher he's up against tonight is Dave Fleming, and doesn't it speak volumes of the Mariners' problems that a 22-year-old left-hander is the best they've got right now? We know we'll see him tonight. The question around Seattle is always, how long will he be a Mariner?
Well, the Mariners have always been able to develop fine young left-handed pitchers, Bannister, Mark Langston, but they're both gone. Dave Fleming is out of the University of Georgia. He's a very well-composed young man, just 22 years old, but he's got a good live arm, and he's really tough on left-handers.
And he has been the best of the starting staff recently. They have only 2 wins in the last 15 games. Fleming has both of them. He's up against right-hander Todd Stottlemyre of the Blue Jays tonight. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Game 2 in this 4-game series between the Seattle Mariners and the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays won last night. They won 2 in Seattle, so they're 3-0 against the M's and 4-0 recently, including 3 straight wins on this homestand, but they still can't shake the Orioles.
Well, the Orioles are really right on the Blue Jays' heels. They're 7-3 in their last game. Tonight they're up against the White Sox. Alex Fernandez for the White Sox. Mike Mussina going for his 5th win of the season. He's 4-0 to this point. An outstanding young pitcher matchup. New York's hanging tough, 17-16. Red Sox just not scoring the runs everybody thought they were capable of. Jack Clark just now starting to swing the bats.
Their pitching staff has been great. So Toronto with the lead is up against Seattle. Todd Stottlemyre is the starter tonight. He has a career 2-5 record against the Mariners. They've been tough on it because he says they're aggressive.
What comes in a box from Samsung? A world of electronics from one of the world's largest electronics manufacturers.
Samsung, technology that works for life.
Open a Samsung box and start cooking.
Todd Stottlemyre making his way out to the mound for start number 8 this season. His last time out, he took a 2-1 loss to Jim Abbott and the California Angels in a great game last Saturday night in Anaheim. So 26-year-old Stottlemyre from Yakima, Washington, is up against Bill Plummer's Mariners tonight. Mariners are 0-3 on a 9-game Eastern swing. Tonight's lineup is brought to you by Samsung, the sensible alternative in home and business electronics. Back to normal again after a shake-up night. Ken Griffey hit leadoff last night for the first time in his major league career. Back in the 3rd spot tonight with Kevin Mitchell in behind him. Top average on this squad belongs to Tino Martinez. The top RBI men are Griffey and O'Brien with 19. O'Brien leads the team with 8 home runs.
Todd Stottlemyre already this year with 3 complete games. His best of this year, 1990, when he had 4 throughout the entire season. Lost a tough one last time out to Jim Abbott and the California Angels. Todd, you heard him talk about the aggressive Seattle Mariners, but he doesn't want to go away from his strength, and that's pitching ahead, using that fastball early in the count to get ahead, and then working in his other pitches. But he's always aware that he needs to pitch ahead, be aggressive. He'll throw curveball to get ahead. He'll throw fastball to get ahead, but primarily he's going to be aggressive and try to get out front with that fastball. Behind Todd in the outfield, the best defense in the major leagues. Only 12 errors so far this season. Bell, White, and Carter in the outfield. Gruber at third. Manny Lee has been flawless at shortstop. Although not spectacular, he's been extremely steady. Hasn't committed an error yet. Pat Borders and Todd Stottlemyre make up the battery tonight.
And here's the crew that will handle this game and this series. Home plate umpire tonight is Darryl Cousins. Joe Brinkman, the crew chief at first. Terry Cooney at second. And Mike Riley, who worked behind home plate last night, is at third base tonight. The beginning of a holiday weekend and a festive atmosphere at Skydome indoors as the Blue Jays take their 25-11 record up against the Mariners. The leadoff man stepping in is Harold Reynolds. Second baseman, sometimes he'll bat second. He's batted ninth this year. Batting leadoff against Todd Stottlemyre. Strike one to Reynolds. Last night when Dave Stieb pitched against the Mariners, we saw a perfect example of how pitching ahead and behind can affect the pitcher in the pace of the game. There's a fly ball to left center field. Devon White lopes over to make the catch, one away. But when Stieb was ahead last night, he worked so quickly, got the ball back, and couldn't wait to throw the next pitch. When he was behind, he paced around the mound and slowed the game down.
Well, when you're throwing strikes and getting outs, that's what you like to do. And that's what the defense behind you likes. They like a pitcher who works quickly, keeps the infielders and the outfielders on their toes. Todd has recognized that he has to utilize the defense behind him. Don't try to strike everybody out. Put the ball in play.
Edgar Martinez at the plate. Ball one from Todd Stottlemyre. Martinez went 0 for 4 last night. One of the Mariners on a pretty good streak right now, hitting .347 for his last 13 games. So he'll be back to .300 where he's accustomed to being in no time. Fouled off, a ball into strike.
Martinez is a good hitter. He utilizes the whole field. Not an awful lot of power, but he can drive the ball up the alleys. He likes the ball out over the plate, and that last pitch was the inside fastball that tied him up.
Breaking ball for a strike. The ball and 2 strikes. Good tight curveball. Here's his 1-2 pitch. 2-2.
That slider just missed outside. Now Borders tried to get it back over the plate by moving that glove, and he'd be better off just to go ahead and receive it. Any of that extra movement, the umpire gets a signal that Pat didn't think it was a good pitch.
2-2 pitch is a fastball hit on the ground to Manny Lee. 2 away.
Boy, there was an awful lot of fans around Toronto last year getting ready to ship Manny Lee out of town, but he has really played some solid baseball so far, both in the field and at the plate. Seems to be a different person after leaving spring training. Much more confident, much more relaxed.
And while we've seen so very little of him, I can't help but think that Alfredo Griffin has been a very positive influence all along to Manny Lee. Even while he's not playing a lot, sitting on the bench, very quiet, but a very positive influence. 2 away, here's Ken Griffey Jr. back in the number 3 spot in the order. Went 1 for 4 last night, batting leadoff. Foul down the third base line. Nice snag.
Perfect night at the ball game. Front row seats, got a souvenir already.
Okay, let's go home. One ball, 1 strike, 2 away, up and in. That got him moving back. 2 balls and a strike.
Well, this is a good pitch because he doesn't hit him, but he establishes to Griffey that he can't be real aggressive and go out over that plate. Now, Griffey is not the kind of hitter you can intimidate, but he's not quite as aggressive to go out and get that last pitch, the fastball on the outside corner. Take another look at it. He steps towards the plate and then has to bail out as that fastball's up and in. That'll give Todd about 2 extra inches on the outside corner, and Griffey won't be able to go out there and get it.
2-2 pitch. Fastball, and he got it. Martinez hit a fastball and a ground ball for an out on a 2-2 pitch, and Griffey swung and missed. 1-2-3 inning for Todd Stottlemyre. It's left-hander Dave Fleming against the Blue Jays. When we come back, this is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. 22-year-old Dave Fleming from Queens, New York, has won 3 in a row. Mariners have 2 wins in the last 15, and he's got them. Cito Gaston's Toronto Blue Jays up against him tonight. They've won 4 straight. First in the East, 1.5 up on Baltimore. Tonight's lineup is brought to you by Samsung, the sensible alternative in home and business electronics. This lineup just stays up in the clubhouse every day. They change the visitor's side of the card. Really, it's only the 4th time Cito's been able to use this lineup because of the injury to Derek Bell. But look for this one most nights. Alomar and Carter top the team with 23 RBIs. Carter has 7 home runs.
22-year-old left-hander Dave Fleming, 4-0 to this point. An inflated ERA because of a couple shaky outings. 270 opponent's average, and that's coming down all the time. Sinking fastball, cut fastball, little slider, and an occasional curveball. Not too much in the changeup category.
Howe is right. 1-1.
That's a cut fastball. Think back to that game where Jim Abbott was so effective against the Blue Jays. Left-hander running the ball down and in on the right-handers, tying him up. This is just off the fist, and he beats it down on his foot. Good movement from Fleming right here. That ball really runs in. You see it out over the plate, try to go get it, and then, man, it eats you up.
Ball and a strike to Devon White, the leadoff hitter. Took one off the shin and then takes one to left field for a base hit. White snapped an 0 for 11 streak last night with a 2-run home run. Said he wanted to get a few more hits before he decided whether or not he was out of the slump. He's on his way tonight.
Vizquel tries to flag it down, but White gets enough of it just to loop it over his head. Really didn't hit it that well. It was another cut fastball. Vizquel, a welcome addition back to the Mariners infield. He missed a month with a strained knee.
Here's Roberto Alomar, the number 2 hitter, and the number 1 hitter in the American League with a .359 average. But he's not far ahead of Mike Bordick of Oakland now, who's at .354 as Alomar comes back to the pack in recent days. White hasn't stolen a base in 14 games. Stands out on first now, sitting on 6.
As he starts to get on base more frequently, I expect him to start running again.
Alomar went 0 for 4 last night. Hitting just .214 in the last week without an RBI. What do you mean he's human?
Well, he's human. Look at that helmet he's wearing. That's his left-handed hitting helmet with the flap on the wrong side. He grabbed the wrong helmet when he went up to the plate.
You said right-hander.
Now, you can't jump on him too quickly because he might have some little answer for this, but I think he just grabbed the wrong helmet. You know, when you go to get your helmet, they all look the same. He saw a 12 on the back of it and thought it was his right-handed helmet.
Two balls and a strike.
Fits him nicely. You never know when that catcher might come up and fire one to second.
Cut fastball runs inside and you foul one off your ear. Any number of reasons why you could do this. 3 balls and a strike now. Devon White on first. Nobody out, bottom of the first inning. And no score between the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Fleming has pitched once against the Blue Jays, but it was only a third of an inning. when he was called up last September in a 5-4 Seattle win. So really they haven't been able to have much of a look at Dave Fleming at all. There goes Devon White. Bunt attempt popped up in the air. White's hustling back, but he's out. A high pop-up on a bunt attempt by Alomar, and it's a double play, 2 away.
Well, the defense comes up with a double play right there on the pop-up to Alomar. Mitchell, Griffey, and Buhner, same outfield that we saw last night. Edgar Martinez. Omar Vizquel, as I mentioned, missed a month with a strained knee. Former Gold Glove winner Harold Reynolds at second base. Matt Sinatra, who caught that pop-up, gets a start tonight. He came in defensively last night. Journeyman catcher. Several different stops in the big leagues.
Ball 1 to Joe Carter, who after a long time of chasing has finally cut up to Roberto Alomar in RBIs at 23. He's the big RBI man on the team. He and Winfield are likely to be the front runners in that department. 2-0. In on the hands, a base hit. Same place Devon White put his. 2-out single for Joe Carter.
Everybody tries to pound Joe Carter inside. You can see Sinatra sitting on the inside corner. That looked like it went off the end of the bat. Carter may have been out in front of that. That's another cut fastball, and that'll make you smile a little bit. What do you think about that, Pete? Just another base hit. Pete said, man, are you going good? Here I am struggling under 200, and you get those kind of hits.
Yeah, but you got the 3-run home run last night. Maybe O'Brien asked him if they're all going to wear their helmets that way tonight. There it was just Robbie. Strike 1 called to Dave Winfield. 2-out, man on. Winfield's average puts him 7th in the American League in hitting.
Jim Fleming on the mound, coming out of the NCAA program at the University of Georgia, is kind of unusual being a college pitcher and having command of the inside corner. Most college pitchers shy away from that part of the plate because of the aluminum bat. Pitch in the college ranks, facing all those hitters with the aluminum bats, try to make a good pitch inside. It doesn't break the bat, they fight it off and flare it for a base hit. But his ability to throw strikes on the inside corner is a real plus.
1 ball, 1 strike. And over to first where Carter's back.
It's so important for any pitcher to be able to throw strikes to both sides of the plate.
Omar Vizquel takes the force to Reynolds at second base, and that's all for the Blue Jays. They've got a pair of hits off 22-year-old Dave Fleming. Left a man aboard, no runs to show for the 2 hits. Todd Stottlemyre's turn to go to work again. Scoreless after 1. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. You're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball, coming to you from Skydome, the world's greatest entertainment center. It's Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on the Sports Network TSN. Todd Stottlemyre set to work. Second inning to the Seattle Mariners. No score in the game. Kevin Mitchell 1 for 4 last night. Is the leadoff hitter and the cleanup hitter. It's the ball to center field. Devon White awaits its arrival and makes the catch. 1 away and 4 straight retired by Stottlemyre to start the game.
Kevin Mitchell was 1 for 3 in last night's game, and the Blue Jays have done a pretty good job of pounding him inside, but they're going to have to be aware, and it's up to Pat Borders to watch and see if Mitchell will guess with him in a crucial situation and look for that inside fastball. He has gotten a dose of inside heat. He comes up in a crucial situation. He might be looking for it. That's up to Pat Borders to watch his feet, see if he makes any subtle adjustments in the batter's box.
1 to Tino Martinez. One strike pitch to this 300 hitter. 0-2. Martinez went 2 for 3 last night, bumped his average up to 305. Ball and 2 strikes. Foul. Yep, put another dent in it.
That looks more painful than it actually is. It just goes off Darrell Cousins' mask. You can see it was deflected by Borders, and that's why it rocked the mask right off his face.
Still can't be particularly good for you.
No, it's not something I'd like to have happen to me every game.
One hopper to the second baseman. Martinez is out, 2 away. Here's the scouting report tonight on Todd Stottlemyre for Donruss. His last 3 games been pretty impressive.
Well, he has really gotten confidence that he can throw the ball over the plate. He's not trying to be too fine. He's being much more aggressive. He goes right at the hitters. He establishes that he's going to throw strike 1, 2 and 1 over the last 23 and a third innings with a 1.54 ERA. And he lost a tough one last time out against Jim Abbott.
1 and 1 in games against Abbott in those last 3 starts. Win over California, won over Oakland and Ron Darling in a loss to the Angels. Just 5 earned runs surrendered in his last 3. 1-0 to Jay Buhner. 1 ball and 1 strike. Buhner had a hit in 3 trips last night. Ball and 2 strikes. And here's what Stottlemyre was talking about before the game when he said he wanted to pitch to his strength and wanted to be in front. He's been ahead in both innings he's pitched, and he's really pitched from strength. He's worked quickly and very efficiently. He's retired 6 in a row to start the ball game. 3 up, 3 down again. No score as we move to the bottom of the second. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Dave Fleming back out to the mound. He's won 3 in a row over Detroit, the Yankees, and California. And he's provided few of the days when pitching coach Dan Warthen has been able to smile.
And Dave Fleming's from New York. He's a left-hander. I think you'll be surprised he's 22 years old because he has so much composure and poise on the mound. He's a left-hander, again, that cuts the fastball in, to sink it away. He's working on a changeup. He'll change speeds off of his curveball. You should see a lot of ground balls this evening if his game is on, and you'll see him ahead in the count quite often. But again, he's very poised for 22 years old, and he's got a lot of chutzpah, as we call it, on the mound. I like the way he goes after things.
There's one of those ground balls Dan was talking about. Kelly Gruber hit it to the shortstop Vizquel, 1 away, bottom of the second inning.
Well, Fleming's from Queens, New York, and he pitched, as I mentioned earlier, University of Georgia, and you can see that he appears to be pretty confident. He's not shy about throwing it over the plate. Those 2 base hits, maybe a little bit higher than he would have liked them, and they were just looped over the infield.
Ball 1 to John Olerud. Now, left-handed hitting Olerud. Been 0 for 2 with a pair of walks last night. Low, and it's 3-0. Three balls and a strike.
Fleming's really been tough on left-handers, although he hasn't faced an awful lot of them. He's held left-handed hitters to a 111 average. That's 3 for 27. He's got a funky little delivery, and that time he ran the ball back in on Olerud. He'll drop down sidearm from time to time, and when he does, he actually has a little better velocity. it is.
And he got it. Olerud was 3-0. And Fleming got him 2 away.
Another indicator that young Dave Fleming is pretty confident after falling behind 3-0. He battles back and gets Olerud on that inside fastball. He dropped down from the side and still had enough movement to run it back inside to that left-handed hitter for the strikeout.
Now right-handed batter Derek Bell. Bell went 0 for 4 last night. He's 1 for 19 in the 5 games since returning to the lineup from the disabled list. Just having trouble finding that stroke that he left spring training with and took to Detroit. After a month out of the lineup, the hits have been few and far between. In fact, there's only been the one of them. 2 balls and a strike from Fleming. Two and two. Up high, ball, full count.
Derek Bell, as we mentioned, just now going through his second spring training.
It's the ball to right field. Jay Buhner makes the catch. Good inning for Dave Fleming. A 1-2-3 inning, working very quickly and as efficiently as Todd Stottlemyre. So we'll go to the third in this battle of pitchers. No score. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Our next telecast is Tuesday night when the Minnesota Twins, the world champions, visit the Toronto Blue Jays at 7:30 Eastern Time from Skydome. Closed captioning of tonight's telecast is partially funded by Labatt Breweries. We'll move to the third inning. Todd Stottlemyre on the mound facing the number 7 hitter Pete O'Brien. Made life a little dicey for the Blue Jays last night when he hit a 7th inning 3-run home run off Dave Stieb. Gave the Mariners a short-lived lead at 4-3, but Calvin Jones came on, couldn't hold it. Devon White hit the 2-run home run that put the Blue Jays ahead to stay. 0-1 to O'Brien. It's the ball in the air to center. 7 straight retired by Stottlemyre.
My idea of a well-pitched ball game is 9 innings, 2 or 3 hits, and about 85, 90 pitches. Let's go to work, particularly when you got a defense like Stottlemyre has behind him. Put the ball in play. There are only a few guys in any lineup that you really have to be concerned about knocking the ball out of the ballpark.
Omar Vizquel fouls off the first pitch, and he, like the others in front of him, is behind in the count 0-1. Now it's 0-2. 27 pitches for Stottlemyre, only 6 of them for balls, so he's throwing strikes, keeping the ball in play. Couple of strikeouts. He's used fly balls, ground balls. Good early start. 0-2, a foul ball the other way.
Now Vizquel has seen 3 pitches, fastball, slider, curveball, all for strikes. That's really tough when you're sitting on the bench watching Stottlemyre work and say, man, he's thrown everything over the plate. I can't really think about one pitch.
But in again, ball and 2 strikes.
Now, folks, that's a good pitch. It's really not as close as Vizquel makes it look. You can see he just ducks out of the way of it. That's the most effective pitch because you don't put the guy on, and then he has a swing like that. That's the result of that pitch before.
Very defensive swing.
Very defensive swing. He's feeling for it. Let me tell you, it's tough if you're a hitter to get one up around your chin and then be aggressive and go out and get an outside pitch. Down. Give it to me down.
breaking ball in the dirt. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Now, this is the pitch that you really think is the pitcher's pitch. And in the first inning, Stottlemyre on 2-2 counts threw fastballs to Martinez and Griffey.
Well, I think this is where the pitcher has to take charge, say, this is my pitch. I'm going to get the hitter out on this pitch. Be aggressive.
Don't want the count to go full.
You don't want it to go full. That really cuts down your options.
So he goes right at him. The ball is popped up in the air. Might be a play for Borders. No.
Jim, the reason I like the 2-2 pitch is Stottlemyre threw a curveball in the dirt. Now the hitter's thinking, well, he's got another pitch to work with before he goes 3-2. So he might throw a breaking pitch. So the hitter is a little bit behind the fastball. That's why you can get aggressive and maybe get the pop-up right there. Unfortunately, that one drifted out of play. But I really like when a pitcher tries to finish off a batter on the 2-2 count.
What about in this instance where he's fouled one off? Go at him again?
Sure.
Stung. But Olerud got it. Nice play by the first baseman. Stottlemyre covered. Vizquel is out. 2 away.
Now you see, Stottlemyre threw the breaking ball, but it gave Vizquel a chance to get the good part of the bat on the ball.
And it took a great defensive play to keep Vizquel from having a base hit.
That's a double if Olerud doesn't glove it. Gets it, flips it to Stottlemyre covering. Vizquel had fouled off the fastball, had no chance, and then gets the slider, which is a little bit slower than the fastball, got the good part of the bat on it, and almost had extra bases.
So now 8 straight retired by Stottlemyre, and once again he's out in front of Matt Sinatro. Dave Valley doing most of the catching till he was hurt, and now it's Sinatro and Dave Cochran. 0-2. There's Stottlemyre way out front again. Breezing through the order first time through. Ground ball, easy pickings for Gruber. 3 up, 3 down, again in the third. 9 straight retired by Stottlemyre. And we'll move to the bottom of the third inning. Still no score in the game. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Blue Jays continue their series against teams from the West. Their first meeting of the season against the Minnesota Twins. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. There are still plenty of seats available for Wednesday's game on the 20th. As a reminder, that Monday game is in the afternoon. Tuesday and Wednesday are evening games. Dave Fleming back to work against the number 8 hitter for the Blue Jays. Pat Borders, the catcher, is up. Fouled away. Strike 1. A strike. 2-1 now to Borders. Blue Jays got a couple of hits off Fleming in the first, both singles for White. Carter got nothing in the second as Fleming got the side in order. Now the count's 3-1 to Pat Borders. Fleming has fallen behind before in this game, but he's been able to catch up in a hurry, as he did with John Olerud. He was 3-0 and struck him out. Another pitch in on the hands. This one holds up long enough for Ken Griffey to get over there. Last 2 players that hit the ball there managed base hits, but Borders didn't. Fly ball to center. Let's have a look at the scouting report on Dave Fleming for Don Russ. His last 3 outings, you see his earned run average about 2 below what it is for the season.
Well, he's really starting to get confident in his abilities up here in the big leagues. He's 3-0. Beat Detroit, New York, and the California Angels in his last 3 starts. 3.26 ERA. His ERA for the year is 5.24, and that's a result of 13 earned runs in 7 1/3 innings in 2 starts. One against the Milwaukee Brewers, the other against the Texas Rangers. 2 hard-hitting ball clubs beat up on the young left-hander.
Danny Lee, it's a strike. Ball and a strike. Fleming, 22 years old, as you mentioned. He's A third-round selection of the Mariners in the 1990 draft, even though he was coming off a national championship team. 1 ball, 1 strike, fouled away. Why didn't he go earlier in the draft?
Well, Jim, the reason he didn't go higher in the draft is because he doesn't have that blazing fastball. Think about first-round draft picks around the league as pitchers. Jim Abbott, California, out of Michigan. Jack McDowell, out of Stanford, hard throwers. Alex Fernandez out of University of Miami and Miami-Dade Junior College, all threw hard. They all went in the first round because of their velocity. Fleming doesn't have the velocity, but he may become just as good a pitcher as those first 3 pitchers I mentioned because he moves the ball around. But a scout looking at him said, I don't know, he doesn't have that good velocity you'd like to see. That's why he was picked in the 3rd round.
And apparently it was a pick wisely used. Full count now on Manny Lee. 1 away, 3rd inning. Ground ball for Omar Vizquel. Pumps once and throws out the other shortstop. 2 away. Following tonight's game, we'll select the Labatt's player of the game for the Blue Jays on behalf of the Canon EOS Rebel S, a high-performance autofocus camera. Fantastically light, compact, responsive, and affordable. You'll be creating photographs, not just taking snapshots. A cash donation will be made to the Canadian Special Olympics on behalf of the Blue Jay player of the game and Canon. 6 straight retired by Fleming since he gave up a single to Carter in the 1st. And now he's up against Devon White, who singled in the 1st. All 1. Strike 1 and 1. Interesting to see how a lineup of mostly veteran hitters deals with Fleming the 2nd time through. White did the same thing as he did in his first at-bat, a single to left. He's 2 for 2.
Fleming shook off a couple of pitches to get to this curveball. It's in a good location, but White's looking for it down and in, and all of a sudden you get the feeling that Devon White is regaining some confidence at the plate. He's not quite as anxious jumping out. He's waiting for the ball to come to him now.
There's Roberto Alomar with a brand new batting helmet. Can you blame him for switching? He hit into a double play in the 1st inning. Popped the ball up. Fleming's been able to recover from this, but it's a dangerous habit to get in, don't you think, falling behind as he has?
It sure is, particularly against the veteran lineup that you referred to. Those guys 2nd time around have a pretty good idea about Fleming.
Checked his swing again, and it's 3-0.
You won't get those borderline pitches like that either when you're always 2-0, 3-1. The umpire questions your ability to hit the corners if you're always falling behind.
Ball 4, 2 men aboard, 1st and 2nd, with 2 out in the 3rd inning, and Sinatra's out to speak with the young pitcher.
Bill Plummer, a former catcher, as a big league player, he knows the importance of getting ahead, and he hasn't had an awful lot of opportunities to manage this year, particularly in the last 15 ball games. His club has only won 2 games. Pitchers, particularly the starting pitchers, have trailed, have gotten their club behind early.
Here's Joe Carter, who singled in the 1st, has a chance to move into the club lead in RBIs. Pulls the first pitch foul, 0-1. Double last night against the Mariners. He also walked and scored a run. Has a hit tonight. Pitch on the outside, a ball and a strike. Two good base runners aboard. White at second, Alomar at first. High fly ball. Got underneath it. Mitchell waves off Griffey. Makes the catch. That's all for the Blue Jays in the third. Fleming put back the threat. Two men stranded aboard. Still scoreless. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Now time for a TSN update with Vic Rodder.
Hello, everybody. As we get ready for the holiday weekend, what a pitching matchup we've got going on at Fenway Park tonight. Roger Clemens, the Red Sox, Jim Abbott, California Angels, and the Rocket. He comes out throwing smoke early. Right here, as he catches Junior Felix looking at strike 3 to end the first. Meanwhile, it's Jim Abbott on the mound for the Angels, and in the second inning, a jam. Bases loaded, and Bob Zubchik hits into the fielder's choice. Jack Clark will score, and the Red Sox have a 1-0 lead as they play in third. We've had a death in practicing for the Indy 500. Jovi Marcello of the Philippines, a rookie at the Indy, crashing, never regaining consciousness. He was 27.
Skydome in Toronto. Todd Stottlemyre against Dave Fleming. Good pitching matchup here, too. In Boston, I expect the one in Chicago tonight will be pretty good, too. Alex Fernandez and Mike Mussina. The Orioles and the Red Sox have the best earned run average as a team in the league. The Blue Jays are behind them in third spot. Todd Stottlemyre, second time through the order, has retired 9 straight. Picks up where he left off in the third. 0-1 on Reynolds, the leadoff hitter. Fastball misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. Reynolds hit a fly ball to center in the first. Inside, 2-1.
The thing about the Mariners hitters looking at Stottlemyre for the second time through the lineup, he has shown them that he's going to throw all of his pitches over the plate. So it really makes it tough on them to pick out a pitch to look for. That time he really came out of his delivery early and pulled that ball down and in well off the plate.
This is unusual. He's 3-1. First base runner comes in the 4th inning. It's a walk to Harold Reynolds.
Now, if you're the Mariners, you finally get a base runner on, you might want to disrupt Stottlemyre's concentration by trying something. Hit and run, steal, do something. You've got to try to break his concentration because he's been mowing down this lineup left and right.
Absolutely. This is a great combination to do it with. Reynolds is a good base runner. He's stolen 9, so you could just have him run. Edgar Martinez at the plate handles the bat very well. Good hit and run man. And Stottlemyre is a man that teams have been able to steal on. Last year, 24th, 27 stole on, and this year, 6 of the 8 who've attempted to steal have been able to get the job done. Now for the Blue Jays, on the positive side of that, Pat Borders has been getting better and better, it seems, at throwing up potential thieves.
Well, it's not a coincidence. He's getting better at throwing out base runners, and he's playing every day. You get more confident. You realize you don't have to rush throws. He'll throw behind the runner, shortening their lead at first.
Over to first. Reynolds is back.
Now see, already the timing has been disrupted because he's got to go over there and check that runner.
Reynolds tried to steal once last night. Borders caught him. Martinez hits the ball to the deepest part of the park. Back to tag is Reynolds. Devon White gets the ball in, and Reynolds is going nowhere. One away and a man on first. This day in baseball is 73. Nolan Ryan pitched his first of 7 no-hitters.
That was in Kansas City against the Royals in Royal Stadium in 1981. Len Barker pitched a perfect game in Cleveland against the Toronto Blue Jays. I was scheduled to go up there in the 9th inning with 2 outs. Perfect game on the line, and they pinch hit for me.
What a mistake.
They had him right where we wanted him.
And today in baseball, welcome to Dante Lewis Joseph Singleton, son of Suzanne and Ken Singleton. Old pal Singy, congratulations. Ken Singleton, color commentator on the Montreal Expo telecast on TSN.
Man, that baby takes after Dad, huh? 11 pounds, 1 ounce.
Speaking of proud fathers, Ken's dad is here tonight.
Working on the Seattle Mariners broadcast. He's also the director of minor league operations, so he's got 2 hats to wear over the Seattle organization. Rookie broadcaster this year. That's where last year he was in uniform with his son. First time that's ever happened in the big leagues. There he is, along with Ken Levine.
Grippy hits the ball to right field into the corner. Reynolds lost it. He spun around at second base. Now he's into third. Marty Martinez was waving him, but he'd held up there. And Grippy's at second base with the double.
He never picked up the ball, and I'm not sure if the middle infielders didn't decoy him. Reynolds was running on the play. Let's have a look at it. He doesn't know where the ball is right now. He's lost it. He's not sure if it's going to be caught, so he stops dead in the water at second base. Then he turns it on. He knows he's got a chance to score, but now he's got to hold up because they stopped him at second. I just don't think Harold Reynolds picked that ball up. He was on the run. It was a line drive. He felt that it might have been caught. When you're in a hit-and-run situation and it's a line drive hit, you might as well go full speed anyway, because if it's a line drive and caught, you're going to be doubled off anyway. But your instincts tell you to stop when you think it might be caught.
Harold Reynolds is a great ball player, but he's had his troubles in this ballpark in the last couple of nights. Caught stealing last night, made an error last night. But he's on third right now. Griffey's at second base with the first Mariner hit of the ball game. It comes with 1 out in the 4th inning. And Kevin Mitchell at the plate. The ball bounces away from Borders. Now Reynolds is home. 1-0 Mariners.
That'll be scored, a wild pitch, but look at it. It's really not that tough a play for Pat Borders. He just didn't get down and block it. He was still on his feet. You got to go to your knees on that one and keep it in front of you. Runners down there at third base. Anything in the dirt, he's got a chance to score.
Wild pitch and the run scores. Griffey got the third on the play. Still 1 out. And the Mariners are in front 1-0. A run on a hit. Infield's in halfway, moving the rest of the way in on the pitch. 2-0 now to Mitchell.
There's a look at the infield defense, trying to cut down the run at the plate. This really puts pressure on your infielders when you have to play in with a big guy like Kevin Mitchell at the plate. Remember how the Blue Jays have pounded him inside with fastballs. Now's the time when he can afford to guess, and they go away with it.
And it's 3-0.
There's a bona fide RBI guy at the plate, chance to drive in a run. You got a base open. Make him hit your pitch. You don't have to come into him. He's starting to swing the bat well, even though you've got a left-handed hitter on deck.
Strike called by Darrell Cousins. 3-1.
Here's where you really got to stay away from the inside. Even though the scouting report says you can get Kevin Mitchell out inside, not in a situation like this. I'd just stay away from him.
Walked it. 2 walks in the inning after sailing through the order the first time. The first 3 innings, Stottlemyre walked Reynolds, got Martinez out, gave up a double to Griffey, and now he's walked Kevin Mitchell. What a change.
Well, second time through the lineup, although I didn't expect the Mariners to make this kind of adjustments. Todd has fallen behind, leadoff walk, and then the line drive double that should have scored a run, but Harold Reynolds lost the ball, held up, eventually came around on the wild pitch.
Now it's ball 1 to Tino Martinez. But it seems as though it's not so much the Mariners adjusting to Stottlemyre as Stottlemyre just not hitting the plate. Missing, and he wasn't in the first 3 innings. He's had base runners to deal with for the first time, and that perhaps has distracted him somewhat, got him out of his rhythm. And he's still in trouble here. First and third, 1 out, the Mariners leading 1-0. Fouled back by Tino Martinez. Ball and a strike.
Martinez, one of the good-looking young hitting prospects in the American League. Scored up in Calgary last year after a slow start. I think he was disappointed he got sent down out of spring training last year. It took him a while to get the bat going.
Foul back. That happens to a few players. One in particular that the Blue Jays have their eyes on right now is Eddie Zosky. Really struggling at AAA ball after a spring training when it seemed many people thought he could take the job away from Manny Lee, and he couldn't. Ball and 2 strikes to Martinez. Now 2-2. Here's that 2-2 pitch now. And earlier in the game, when everything was going his way, Stottlemyre was just veering back and throwing the fastball 2-2. And it was working. See what he does here.
Well, throughout this inning, all of a sudden he's gotten to the point where he feels like he has to make pitches to the corners. He's fallen behind, and that's gotten him in trouble. Also, sometimes on the mound, you just lose it for an inning or two where you don't have the feel for how to get the ball in the strike zone.
Just like that. Now that same pitch earlier in the ball game was a strike. Staying right out of over the plate. Full count.
These are the types of things that good pitchers adjust to during the course of the game. Right on the mound. Make adjustments and get back into that good delivery.
3-2 pitch with Mitchell running from first is fouled back. In the first 3 innings of the ball game, Stottlemyre threw only 8 pitches for balls. He's thrown 12 of them in the 4th inning. Walked a couple. Has runners at first and third. A run in on just 1 hit, the double by Griffey. Although he didn't drive the run in, it came in on a wild pitch. There goes Mitchell again. Pulled to right field foul.
Here's a 3-2 count. Stottlemyre doesn't have a whole lot of options now. He's got runners on at first and third. So he's got to throw a strike. Doesn't want to walk another batter, so the advantage goes over to the hitter.
3-2. There goes Mitchell again. Up the middle. Manny Lee for 1. Down to first. Double play. Nicely turned by Manny Lee, who hopped up in the air, made the throw to Olerud, and gets Stottlemyre out of a dicey situation in the 4th. 1-0 Mariners. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. The Memorial Cup wraps up this weekend. The National Junior Hockey Championship features Seattle Thunderbirds and the Kamloops Blazers in the semifinal on Saturday. Kamloops have won over Seattle 3-1 last night in a tune-up for that. Sunday at 4 Eastern, the winner of that game takes on the Sioux Greyhounds, the team Buck picked to win all along.
Those Sioux Greyhounds really got a lot of momentum going into the semis. I really like them. Sault Ste. Marie, got to be proud of your team up there.
Why now? Why this sudden love affair with the Greyhounds, Buck?
I had a great couple of days up in the Sioux this winter. Wonderful people up there, and they love their Greyhounds. And I've become a fan.
I see. Trying to get a free round of golf in Sault Ste. Marie now.
When I was up there, the golf course was kind of covered up. About 3 feet of snow.
Yeah, I can imagine. Dave Winfield is the leadoff hitter for the Blue Jays in the 4th. They trail 1-0, have 3 hits off Dave Fleming. But have been unable to get a run up this 22-year-old left-hander. 2 balls, no strikes to Winfield. 0 for 1, grounded out to the shortstop to end the 1st inning. Here's the 2-0 pitch from Fleming. Looping, breaking ball outside. Pitch for a strike. Winfield took it. 3-1. Fleming looked so very composed out on the mound. His first year as a starter in the big leagues, just 22. The burden of a losing streak on his shoulders tonight as he's trying to be the stopper for the Mariners. Walked it. Been behind in the count a lot, and he's flirted with walks, but he's never given one up until now.
Well, that pattern will more than likely catch up to him with a veteran hitting ball club like the Blue Jays. Continues to fall behind. These good hitters can sit on pitches.
I stand corrected. That was his 2nd walk. He walked Alomar in the 3rd. Here's Kelly Gruber. Strike 1.
Gruber last night with the double down the right field line, got a single left hit and a home run to left field. But it was that first base hit, I think, that was the key to his 3-hit night. Really stayed on that ball and drove it down the line and right.
1 strike pitch. 0-2. Third base coach Rich Hacker. Winfield at first. And Gruber 0-2 against Dave Fleming. Way outside, a ball and 2 strikes. Over to first where Winfield's back. Different move. Same result. Winfield's back in. One to nothing Mariners. Bottom of the 4th inning. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Gruber. Fleming's 2-2 pitch to Gruber, and he got him. His 2nd strikeout of the night.
Take a look at Kelly Gruber striking out here. Watch his head. See how it stayed on it pretty well, but it was a bit upstairs. I think Kelly was surprised by that ball being upstairs. Now here's a guy that doesn't really throw hard. You don't think of him as an overpowering pitcher, but he has the hitters thinking down, 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 and then comes upstairs, surprised Kelly, and got him to chase that high fastball.
Now here's John Olerud, who is strikeout victim number 1 back in the 2nd inning, caught looking. After the count had gone 3-0. Ball 1.
Seen a didn't move yet. Very deliberate. Will come quick with that step back and short toss to first. Another move. Not suggesting that Dave Winfield is that real speed burner, threat to steal, but he's getting a good look at the move of Dave Fleming. Let's see another one.
And he's getting a lot of attention from Fleming.
Well, it's important, even though Winfield may not steal here, to keep his lead short to set up a chance to turn 2 on the infield.
Ball and a strike now to Olerud.
By shortening up Winfield's lead at first base, Fleming can give his middle infielders a chance should he coax a ground ball out of John Olerud. By throwing over to first base, Winfield's got to shorten up, but he can't be quite as aggressive, get the jump off the bag.
To the plate, and he missed 2-1. Dropped down to the side that time. Over to first again. And now Matt Sinatra's up to the mound to speak with Fleming once again.
Yeah, there's a first-year pitcher in the big leagues, making sure that he's thinking correctly as far as how to pitch to John Olerud. 2-1 count.
Now 3-1. I would say that a preoccupation with the runner might have caused this, except that it's been a habit for Fleming throughout the game. Winfield's running. The ball is popped way up in the air. Winfield's moving back towards first base. Harold Reynolds up to make the play. 2 away. Now, from time to time throughout the season, we like to take a look at the Blue Jays minor league system, bring you up to date on how some of the prospects are doing. And here's 2 very good ones. Carlos Delgado is a catcher. Sean Green, a first-round draft pick and outfielder.
And they're both off to great starts at Dunedin. 13 home runs and 36 RBIs for Delgado, and he is a good-looking player. Catcher, great body, off to a fast start. Sean Green, we saw him up here in the Skydome in spring training. Hit a double off a tough left-handed Pirate pitcher, Rosario Rodriguez. He looks like he is going to be on the quick path to the big leagues, starting out from Dunedin.
Also of note from Dunedin, Rob Butler. A young local boy from the Toronto area, hitting .343. He's an outfielder. A couple of home runs and 17 RBIs. A lot of very good prospects at the low minor league level for the Blue Jays in Dunedin. Derek Bell was at the AAA level last year. Had an outstanding season, and that's why he's in the big leagues, getting every opportunity to get his game on track. 1 ball, 1 strike, runner at first base, 2 out, bottom of the 4th, and it's 1-0 Mariners. Ball and 2 strikes now.
Derek slapping his helmet. He is not pleased with the fact that he went after that high pitch. And this is tough when you're just coming back off an injury, trying to get your timing and be selective in the big leagues.
Outside, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Two pitch to Bell. Counts 4. Winfield at first. He'll be off and running. There goes the runner, and it's ball 4 to Derek Bell. A third walk surrendered by Dave Fleming, who's always deep in the count, but he's been able to dodge a bullet so far for Bill Plummer's Seattle Mariners. 2 men on, 2 men out. And Pat Borders up. Let's continue our look at the minor league system. Double-A Knoxville, Nigel Wilson is an outfielder with 5 home runs. And Graham Lloyd on the mound. What a start for him.
Well, Nigel Wilson, Toronto area fella, having a pretty good start. Graham Lloyd from Australia, big, tall, left-handed pitcher, working out of the bullpen at Double-A, doing a good job.
.54 run average. Nigel Wilson from Oshawa. Greg O'Halloran is on that team as well from Mississauga. He's a catcher hitting .263 with a home run and 13 RBIs. And he, too, is a good catching prospect. So at Double-A, O'Halloran. And at A-ball, Carlos Delgado. Good catchers at the low minor league level. Now it's 2-0 on Borders as Fleming continues to fall behind, and now they'll get a visit from the pitching coach. Dan Warthen's on his way up to the mound.
Brady Anderson's RBI single has put the Baltimore Orioles on top in the 3rd inning. That's Messina against Alex Fernandez. A couple of good young right-handed pitchers. And Warthen, the pitching coach, out to talk to his young left-hander. Warthen was a left-handed pitcher himself. First year as the pitching coach. Last year he was the bullpen coach for the Mariners.
He was a pitching coach for Bill Plummer in Calgary at the AAA level. He was an expo pitcher in the mid-70s.
Well, he's got some young fellas here that have to learn on the fly in the big leagues. 7 of the pitchers that pitched for the Mariners last year no longer with them. And 8th is on the disabled list, Brian Holman. So Dan Warthen is certainly going to earn his keep this year. We'll have a lot of skull sessions with these young pitchers, trying to get them to realize what it takes to be successful.
So far, this 22-year-old's been leading the way. Bent a little in this ball game, but he hasn't broken yet. Hasn't given up a run. Blue Jays left a man in the 1st, couple in the 3rd. Now have runners at 1st and 2nd with 2 out in the 4th. And the count's 3-0 to Pat Borders. Manny Lee on deck. Borders smokes it, but it's way up in the air. Kevin Mitchell in left. And he missed it by that much. And that's all for the Blue Jays in the 4th. Got a couple aboard without the aid of a hit. 2 walks, but Fleming again pitched his way out of a spot of trouble, and we'll move to the 5th with the Mariners leading 1-0. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. 5th inning at Skydome, 1-0. The Mariners lead the Blue Jays. Got the run in the 4th after Todd Stottlemyre had retired the first 9 hitters in order. He walked a couple and gave up a double in the 4th inning. Harold Reynolds scored from 3rd on a wild pitch. And the Mariners have the lead for Dave Fleming. Jay Buhner, the leadoff hitter, number 6 hitter in the Mariners order. Stottlemyre started falling behind in the 4th and continues that in the 5th. It's 2-0. Base hit. 2nd hit of the night for the Mariners. It's a leadoff single for Jay Buhner in the 5th.
It is simply not a coincidence that hitters become better when the count's in their favor. They know they have a couple of free shots. Buhner ahead, 2 balls, no strikes. Stottlemyre makes a pretty good pitch on the outer half of the plate. Actually, maybe even outside, but because Buhner feels nice and confident, aggressive, he laces a single to left field.
Pete O'Brien now. Strike 1. Here's a batter that'll really go to town when the count's in his favor.
O'Brien, you see he's hitting under 200, but his hits, he's made them big ones. 8 home runs, 19 RBIs. The thing about O'Brien, and over the years has made him a good hitter, is he most targets up the alleys, left center, right center. He feels that keeps him on the ball longer, gives him a little bit more time to determine breaking ball, fastball. He tries to think about his strengths as opposed to looking for a pitcher's pitch. Because if you do that, then you're thinking about the pitcher's best pitch.
1 ball and 1 strike. Pull to Olerud. Manny Lee for 1, dropped the ball. But second base umpire Terry Cooney ruled that Manny Lee had possession of the ball, and he gets the force on Buhner, but O'Brien's safe at first base.
John Olerud has really made some improvements at first base defensively. Take a look at this play. Not an easy play, right close to the seam of that artificial turf. Makes a good throw to Manny Lee, but you can see Manny Lee didn't have his bare hand up by the glove. I think Bill Plummer could argue this play right here. Take a look at it. You've got to take the ball out of your glove. You could see his hand wasn't even close. You've got to be in the motion of taking that ball out. Blue Jays may have gotten a break on that call. Umpires can, in their judgment, call the runner out if they feel the infielder is taking the ball out of the glove.
So he's made the catch. We saw that a couple of times. Did Manny Lee actually make the catch?
Didn't look like he made it to me. He wasn't taking the ball out of his glove.
It was bouncing out.
See, he caught that one funny in his glove, and that's why it kicked out of there. He's going, man, I got that one out on the outer part of my hand.
Outside, 2 balls and a strike, and a meeting out at the mound.
This is really frustrating for Todd because he had such good control first 9 batters, and that's going to bring Galen Cisco out of the dugout. He retired 9 straight through 3 innings. He had pinpoint control with all of his pitches, and then it left him in the 4th. Leadoff walk, then a 1-out double, another walk. Got out of the inning with a double play, but he hasn't had control since the start of the 4th.
An uncanny reversal of form.
Now, earning the ball game after 9 hitters, I was thinking to myself, this is no-hit kind of stuff, the way he was throwing his first 9 batters. And then he just lost command.
2 balls and a strike to Omar Vizquel. He hits the ball to center field, looking towards left, and Devon White is there, makes the catch. Vizquel has gone 2 away with O'Brien at first base. We'll continue our scouting report of the Blue Jays organization now. AAA Syracuse catcher Ed Sprague, shortstop Eddie Zosky, who we mentioned has been sent down, really having problems getting going, not hitting much and making a lot of errors.
Well, Sprague with 6 homers and 16 RBIs. Right now, he's trying to get over a fractured toe. He's not catching much. A little first and DH. Eddie Zosky, boy, he had a decent year last year at AAA, but I think the disappointment of being sent down still lingering for him.
Matt Sinatra hits a fly ball to center field, caught by Devon White, and that's all for the Mariners in the 5th. They got a leadoff single, but didn't get another run. Todd Stottlemyre's trailing in the ball game 1-0 to Dave Fleming, and the Mariners as we move to the bottom of the 5th. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. You know, we were looking at scouting reports. The Blue Jays don't have an awful lot of great starting prospects at AAA. Maybe the best pitcher who's not there is Pat Henkin, the right-hander. He's not sure whether he'd be better off there or right here where he is tonight.
Well, some of the positive things is I get to be around with some of the, proven veterans, Henke and Ward, and I get to see how they warm up and see, the type of mental attitude they have towards the game. And, I get to work with Galen, and I get to just be around a Major League, facility, Major League ballpark, and face Major League hitters when I get in there. The negative thing is I don't get to pound out the 150, 200 innings down at AAA like I have in the past. And, I don't know. It's kind of a situation where I'm kind of confused as far as what would be better. I mean, I think that in the month and a half that I've been here, I've learned more in a month and a half than I would down at AAA, I'll tell you that. But, as far as pounding out all the innings, I don't know. It's one of them things. I do throw on the side a lot here, so I know that's going to help. But, I think overall it's probably better for me to be here.
What a great play by Omar Vizquel to get Manny Lee, the leadoff hitter for the Blue Jays in the 5th inning.
This is why Bill Plummer is pleased to have Vizquel back healthy at the shortstop position. Take a look at this play. One shot, bare hands it, comes up throwing, and gets Manny Lee by a half a step. Boy, that's a nifty play by Omar Vizquel. Bare hand grab, long throw to Pete O'Brien to retire Manny Lee.
That'll pick a team up a little bit when they're in a slump. But a great defensive play. One out, Devon White is up. Blue Jays trailing 1-0. An interesting comments from Pat Henkin. Very honest about his feelings. Obviously, a lot of guys just say, hey, this is the place for me. I'm glad to be here in the major leagues. But he's not entirely sure that this is the best spot for him. Now, there are young pitchers before him, though, who have pitched in relief for a while in the majors and then moved into a starting position, aren't they?
Jimmy Key was one in '84. He was a reliever, saved 10 games, and became a starter. Everybody, I think, pretty much agrees that Henkin is going to be a starter. He made 152 starts through his career. Todd Stottlemyre's another one that came up, pitched out of the bullpen, and then moved into the starting rotation. You know, this has all happened because of Mike Timlin, who was destined to be in that role.
What's become of Mike Timlin?
Well, Timlin's going to throw in a simulated game tomorrow down in Florida. Physically, he's coming along probably okay, making some nice strides. Really hasn't suffered any setbacks. But the psychological aspect is not up to speed. There's a walk.
Fourth of the night issued by Fleming. It's a one-out walk to Devon White, who's been on all 3 times. He's been up 2 singles and now a walk.
The thing about Timlin is I was referring to the psychological aspect. When you're a strong arm pitcher like Timlin and have never had any arm trouble, it takes you a long time to believe that you're healthy again. Even though you may throw it okay, you just don't cut loose with that 100% effort.
Baby the arm a little bit so that 93-mile-an-hour fastball is 89 instead.
And doesn't have that darting action on it.
Ball 1 to Roberto Alomar, who's popped up into a double play and walked in another meeting. Matt Sinatro is caught in Atlanta. Seattle the last few years in the minors. Expo action tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern. At the home of the Braves, the Expos and the Braves. 7 Eastern tomorrow night.
Good pitching matchup in that game. Dennis Martinez against Steve Avery. A couple of premier National League pitchers.
Creeps out, gets a little bit bigger lead, couple of steps and stops. Strike thrown to Alomar. White's back to first. It's a ball and a strike. High and away, 2 balls and a strike. Dives back into first base.
You know, Dan Horton, the pitching coach, talked to us earlier in the show about Fleming's mental toughness. He's shown an awful lot of poise out there. Got him picked up.
Just about slid underneath it. The White is out.
Devon White was going on the first movement he saw from the left-hander. Right there, he picks up his leg and he's gone. He knows he's picked up. Now he's just trying to jar the ball loose at second base. He looked at the umpire. Watch his front leg. Sneaks in there, and he may have missed that front leg and tagged the back leg. But that throw beat him down there.
The throw was high, though, and he was still running hard. He almost slid in underneath it.
Watch this. Watch that front leg sneak in there. I don't know. From there, it looked like he was out.
Alomar fouls off the next pitch, and it's 2-2 from Dave Fleming. Two away now, nobody aboard. Alomar hits the ball into right field. His first hit of the night is a 2-out single in the 5th. Fourth hit of the night for the Blue Jays off Fleming, all of them singles.
There's that looping curveball. Look how Alomar stays back. It's on the outer half of the plate. He just strokes it into right field. There's a good example of taking what the pitcher will give to you. Don't think about anything but getting that base hit. Curveball stayed out there, and he took it to right.
Joe Carter singled in the first, hit a fly ball to left in the 3rd. Pops up here in the 5th. O'Brien over for a look at the seats. Might have a play. Yes, he does. Carter's out. That's all for the Blue Jays in the 5th. Another impressive performance for Dave Fleming, who has a 1-0 lead into the 6th. And this is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Now time for another TSN update with Vic Crowder.
This sports update is brought to you by Toyota, the promise of something better.
Hello again, everybody. Jim Houston was telling you about Expos baseball tomorrow on TSN, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Well, they're opening their 3-game series with Atlanta at Fulton County this evening. It's the Expos who get on the board first. Larry Walker doubles to the wall in right. Marquis Grissom will come in to score to make it 1-0 Montreal, but the Braves will answer in the bottom of the first off the hit and run beautifully. Ron Gant slaps one through the big hole. Otis Nixon comes around to score easily. 1-1 on Gant's league-leading 30th RBI. Now in the 3rd, it's Atlanta leading 2-1 over Montreal. Remember last year when Ayrton Senna won the first 4 Formula One races of the season, they said they'd never do it again. Well, Nigel Mansell has already won 4, and he's a good bet to win 5. He already has the pole for Sunday's San Marino Grand Prix.
Thank you, Vic. To the top of the 6th inning here with Seattle leading 1-0. This is a team that hasn't had many great pitching performances, and on a night when they're getting one, they can't score many runs. They're 11th in the 14-team American League in runs scored, just 1 tonight. A tenuous lead, to say the least. Todd Stottlemyre to work to Harold Reynolds, who started the trouble. Stottlemyre got in the 4th inning here. Strike 1 to Reynolds. Ball and a strike. Reynolds walked in the 4th inning and scored on a wild pitch after he moved up to 3rd base. A double by Ken Griffey. That's the only run of the ball game. Here's the 1-1 pitch, bounced up to Borders. 2 balls and a strike. The impeccable control that he showed for the first 3 innings has just elevated him. Soft liner to Manny Lee, 1 away in the 6th.
That'll drive a pitcher crazy. Boy, you breeze through the first 9 hitters, and all of a sudden you can't find the plate. It's like it's bouncing around on you. You make good pitches early in the game, try to find that heart of the plate. Can't even throw one down the middle.
Still, he's very much in the ball game. He's given up just 2 hits. It trails 1-0. There's ball 1 to Edgar Martinez. The 29-year-old from New York. It's 2 straight 300 seasons. 0 for 2 tonight. 1 ball, 1 strike. Up high, 2-1. Now 3-1.
See,
Dead ball 4.
you can get that pitch if you're around the plate all the time. Umpire will give you that one, but Todd has been everywhere. Up, down, in, out, off the plate. Throws one on the corner. May have gotten this in the first 3 innings because he was all over the corners. But now he's fallen behind, and Darrell Cousins knows that he's struggling, so he doesn't give him that outside strike.
And now Stottlemyre's walked 3. Ken Griffey Jr.'s up. 1 away and a man on first base. Griffey doubled in the 4th. Pulls the ball down the line. This time it's foul.
Jim, a lot of people might think, well, why wouldn't the umpire call the strike zone the same throughout the course of the game? It's very well defined. But
that is a good question.
When the umpire gets into the rhythm and he sits up behind the catcher and the pitcher throws it right in the glove, even if it's 6 inches outside, if you do it consistently over and over and over again, he'll give you that pitch. But now Stottlemyre's struggling all down, in, and out. He's having a tough time getting anything close, so Darrell Cousins is a little more aware that Stottlemyre has to throw it over the plate. When you show an umpire you've got good command of your pitches, all of a sudden you'll get a couple of inches on both sides of that plate.
What a way to compound your trouble, though. You're already in trouble and the strike zone shrinking. Ahead here, though, to Griffey, 0-2. Pitch off the end of the bat, foul. Defensive swing from Griffey. Yusina and Fernandez, a pitching duel in Chicago. The Orioles 1.5 back of Toronto. 1-0 Orioles in the top of the 4th.
Yankees 3-1 over the A's, top of the 5th inning. Welch against Kamenicki in that game. Roberto Kelly with his 3rd home run of the year.
Another great pitching battle. Abbott and Clemens. You saw some highlights from that earlier. 1-0 Boston. 2-0 Cleveland. Nagy and Erickson tonight. Good pitching battles all over the place. Texas and Milwaukee. Guzman and Fazio. 1-1, 5th inning. And will this pitching battle last? No. Detroit 5-0. A 5 spot in the 2nd. That's Gullickson and Young. Tony Phillips has hit his 5th home run of the season for the Tigers.
Over to National League, the Phillies up on top 5-0 over the Reds. Starters in that game, Mulholland against Browning. San Diego up 5-2 in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. Lefferts against Danny Neagle. No score in Houston. Boy, the Cardinals really playing well. Canadian Real Cormier on the mound tonight against Houston. Darren Kyle.
Ball and 2 strikes to Griffey. Ground ball charged by Manny Lee. 1 play, and that's to first. Griffey's out, 2 away. Edgar Martinez moved up to second base. When did the Blue Jays see the Orioles again? They play through this long streak of games against the West in the month of May. June the 5th. Camden Yards, 5th to 6th and 7th. One to look forward to. Up and into Kevin Mitchell from Stottlemyre, 1-0. Inside 2-0.
But you see Mitchell starting to open up there. He was guessing with Stottlemyre, was looking for something inside, but it ran off the plate. You can see that front foot really drifted open. He was guessing right then. He stands right on top of the plate, so he's got great plate coverage outside. Hand came right off the bat there. It was a funny swing. Right off the bat, the bottom hand. Boy, he's got a redwood up there anyway. That thing is a monster bat.
Kevin grips his railroad tie, and the pitch is outside. 3-1.
You don't want to order too many of those bats. The environmentalists will get on you for clear cutting. Takes a whole bunch of trees to make those kind of bats.
Oh, that's a strike inside. Mitchell will jump back off the plate, thought he was aboard.
Yeah, he makes a real good pitch. Busts him inside. Look how close he is to that plate. And he paints the black. He was ducking out of the way, but Darryl Cousins rings it up.
Full count. 2 out. Martinez on second base. All 4. Mitchell's aboard. 2 walks in the inning, 4 on the night. And his control continues to elude him.
Well, that was a semi-intentional walk there with the base open, not wanting to give in to Mitchell. With 2 outs, you know the RBI guys that you want to avoid. Down by a run, you got a base open. Go ahead, put him on. He wants to chase that bad breaking ball. Let him. Now he's got to work with Tino Martinez.
And this guy's a left-handed hitter who can hit the ball out of the park. Ball 1. Martinez is grounded out, hit into a double play. In on the hands, fouled off.
Jim, you make a good point about the left-handed hitter Martinez. He has shown that he can hit the ball out of the park. He's hitting over 300 right now, but he doesn't have the track record of a Kevin Mitchell, who has done it over the years. The last 3 years, he's led the major leagues with 109 home runs. So you put the onus on Martinez to come through with 2 outs.
Still have to make very good pitches. Fouled away again. Ball and 2 strikes.
Martinez 2 for 3 last night. A couple of singles. There's Bob McDonald, the left-hander. Pat Hinkin, the right-hander.
Early in this game, didn't look like there'd be anybody up in the bullpen, did it?
I think it takes the night off.
We've seen 2 different 3-inning ball games from Todd Stottlemyre. The first 3 and the next 3. And because of the next 3, he might not be around for the last 3. Two pitch. Inside to Tino Martinez, full count. So a full count, 2 out, 2 on. Runners will be moving as Stottlemyre delivers to Tino Martinez. There go the runners. Line drive, base hit. Edgar Martinez around third. He'll score to make it 2-0 Mariners. First and second with 2 out now as Tino Martinez delivers.
This is what happens when you go to a full count. Even though it was a sharp single to center field, Devon White doesn't even have a chance to throw the runner out at the plate. 3-2, runners going on the pitch. Stottlemyre has to come in with a fastball. Martinez delivers, but because the runners were going with 2 outs, there's no chance to throw him out at the plate. You've got to stay away from those full counts. Not a whole lot of good things happen for pitchers when the count goes to 3-2.
2-0 lead for Dave Fleming. Jay Buhner's up. Trying to add to the Mariner lead now with 2 out. Kevin Mitchell's out at second base. Tino Martinez at first, having collected his 12th RBI of the season. Ball 1 to Buhner. There goes Borders out to the mound, looking into the dugout as he goes. Wonder if he'll have anybody with him for this meeting.
I think they're going to give Todd a chance to get out of this inning. He certainly deserves that. He's been very well for him all year long. Galen Cisco standing top step of the dugout, wondering what caused Todd to lose his control. He's walked forward. 2 of those walks have come around to score. Both runs put on base with the walks.
Strike 1 and 1. Ground ball foul. Ball and 2 strikes to Jay Buhner. Two to nothing Mariners in the 6th inning. Now the 1-2 pitch. Got him. For Todd Stottlemyre, his 3rd strikeout of the night and his first since the 2nd inning. That was his 100th pitch of the night. The Mariners got another in the 6th. A walk and a base hit. Cost Todd Stottlemyre. He trails 2-0. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Dave Fleming out on the mound with a 2-0 lead. As mentioned, he's out of Georgia, and his pitching coach Dan Warden says there's a good reason why a lot of college pitchers, college players in particular, will be in the majors.
I think more organizations are going for the college guy now because they don't get a hold on to players as long as they used to. We used to have them in 3 years before they'd get to go to the big leagues, and you had 3 more years once they got to the big leagues. You lose them a lot sooner now, so we're going to college guys with a little more experience that only have to spend a year or 2 in the minor leagues and can go right up. I think our game's getting to where we're just going to have superstars and we're going to have regular guys. I don't think there's going to be that middle guy so much as we go along because of the high salaries. So college guys have become a lot more important and probably will become even more important.
Certainly this one is extremely important to the Mariners.
Well, those sentiments are echoed by a lot of people regarding the finances of baseball. You're going to have a big disparity between the young player and the superstar. And you're not going to have the veteran player maybe sitting on the bench, a role player, making $800 to $1 million.
So you go out and get a whole bunch of $2 million guys, not a whole bunch, but a core of $2 million players, and then get the rest of the guys that are $200,000 utility men.
You have to get the heart of your team, and I think $2 million may be conservative because the superstars are going to command more than that. But you're right, there's going to be that wide gap. John Old's a good example of somebody who came along right out of college, came to the big leagues, and moved him on. Dave Winfield's another. Go ahead, shoot him right into the big leagues.
1-2 pitch, driven hard to right field. Buhner's going back, nice play. Winfield really hit that ball hard, and Buhner had to go hard to make the catch, and he did it.
A very determined outfielder, Jay Buhner. Watch him. He looks, sees how much room he has, and then turns on the speed just another notch. Tracks it down just short of the warning track. He's a good player who has enjoyed the last couple of years injury-free and been able to put up some pretty impressive numbers.
And now turned himself into an everyday player. You know, there's another reason why college players will be popular in the draft. That's because the draft rules are changing this year as well. Used to be that if you drafted a college player and he went to college, you lost his rights. So you see all sorts of players who were drafted by 3 organizations before they went to the major leagues. Now, in the upcoming draft, the 1-1 pitch to Kelly Gruber, and he pops it way, way up in the air. Harold Reynolds going back to make the catch and does, 2 away. Starting this year, and there's some controversy in the majors about this, if you draft a player and he decides to go off to college, you still hold his rights even after he finishes college, and you could sign him when he comes out.
I don't think that rule's going to stand up.
You don't think so?
Not at all. I think it's going to be tested, and someone to test it I think is going to be maybe a Ryan Luzinski, Greg's son. who projects to be a first-round draft pick out of New Jersey as a catcher. Kuczynski's got a great background in the Players Association, knows the ins and outs of the bylaws and everything. I think they'll test it. I don't think it'll stand up.
Furnished with a 2-0 lead. Dave Fleming comes out and has perhaps his best inning of the ball game in the 6th, getting Winfield, Gruber, and Olerud in order. We'll move to the 7th. 2-0 M's. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. From Toronto's Skydome, you're watching Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on the Sports Network, TSN. Welcome back, everyone. It's 2-0 for the Mariners. Is something wrong with this uniform? One of these things doesn't belong here?
I think they're both proud of their hats, huh?
Todd Stottlemyre out to face Pete O'Brien, the number 7 hitter for the Mariners. 7th inning, trailing 2-0. Stottlemyre, on average, has very good run support from the Toronto Blue Jays. That's somewhat deceiving as the pitch goes up and in, ball and a strike. In 4 of his 7 starts, the Blue Jays have afforded him 2 or fewer runs in support. But he's got so many runs in support in the other starts that his run support looks like he gets a feast every night. So he's often been in this situation.
Well, back in April, he had a game where he struggled. He won the game. He gave up 8 runs, but he received 13 runs of support. So that really skews the average.
Last 2 times out, 2-1 he lost, 1-0 he won. Excuse me, last 3 times out because there was a 1-0 victory over California. 2-2. And then he had an outing against Ron Darling in California, in Oakland, that he won 7-3. Last time out, 2-1 loss in Anaheim. Pete O'Brien hits the ball in the air to center field. 1 away. Following tonight's game, we'll select the Labatt's player of the game for the Mariners on behalf of Sanyo, makers of the cordless telephone answering machine system. Now when you're away from your cordless phone, Sanyo takes a message with Sanyo's new static-free cordless telephone answering machine. If it isn't clear, it simply isn't a Sanyo. A cash donation will be made to the Canadian Special Olympics on behalf of the Mariners player of the game and Sanyo. Omar Vizquel trying to bunt his way aboard, fouled it off 0-1. Just 3 hits for the Mariners to get their 2 runs. Kelly Gruber. Stottlemyre ducks down to give him a clear path to first base, 2 away.
Well, Stottlemyre certainly hasn't been beat around at the ballpark tonight. Those walks really hurt him. Of his 4 walks, 2 of them have scored.
But he has an opportunity to have a 1-2-3 inning for the first time since the 3rd here in the 7th as he's trying to deal with the bottom of the order. Got O'Brien, Vizquel, and now working on Matt Sinatra, the number 9 hitter. McDonald and Henkin were up in the bullpen, but all is quiet there now. Bunted foul, 0-2.
Sinatra taking a shot with Gruber way back, not expecting the bunt, trying to drop one down the 3rd before the foul.
Sinatra's been a part-timer in Atlanta, Oakland, Detroit, now playing in Seattle. Broke his bat, and he's out too. A 1-2-3 inning for Todd Stottlemyre in the 7th. Time for the 7th inning stretch at Skydome. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Inning stretch with a bang at Skydome. We'll move to the bottom of the 7th. Derek Bell to lead the Blue Jays to the plate against 22-year-old Dave Fleming, who has a 2-0 lead. Trying to win for the Mariners for the 3rd time in their last 16 games. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Toronto Blue Jays Baseball Club and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Toronto Blue Jays Baseball Club. Bottom of the 7th at Skydome in Toronto on the Sports Network TSN. I'm Jim Houston with Buck Martinez in the broadcast booth. Dave Fleming to Derek Bell. Pitched him inside. Derek popped it up. Sinatra's got it. One away.
Yeah, he was peeking down there at the first baseman O'Brien, looking for some help. Bell popped it straight up. Take a look at his swing. Bell gets his pitch, but you can see his timing was off. Hits it straight up the elevator shaft, and he's retired. He's had a tough go of it since coming back from that rehab assignment.
1 for 21. Hasn't hit in his last 5 games. One to Pat Borders. And in a reversal of fortunes, Dave Fleming has started to pitch ahead in the count while Todd Stottlemyre has started to fall behind. Fleming picking up more confidence as the game has gone on, and he's been provided with a 2-0 lead. Two and one. Spoke too soon. Now it's 3-1. He's fallen behind. Borders 0 for 2 tonight with a couple of fly balls. This is a situation that hasn't bothered Fleming too much tonight, though. Quite surprisingly, he hasn't been hurt a lot by being behind in the count.
That is surprising because he's not a power pitcher. He's not the kind of guy that can just come down the middle with that blazing fastball. He has to rely on movement. You'd think sooner or later, behind in the count would catch up to it.
He walks Borders, the 5th walk of the night. Closed captioning of tonight's telecast is partially funded by Labatt's Brewers.
Bill Plummer has not had a whole lot of good results come out of that bullpen. Might be why he's a bit hesitant to take out the young left-hander. Fleming looking for his 5th straight win.
I think even though he's had his problems, he's still pretty confident in his closer, Mike Schooler, but he doesn't like to use him this early. His setup men have been a problem for him. To Lee, it's a ball and a strike. Manny Lee has had a great month of it. I think probably the key to his season will be how he's able to sustain over the summer months. He's really had a history of tailing off in July, August, and September.
Because of that, it may be up to Cito Gaston to monitor his play a little bit, make sure he gets enough rest. He's got Alfredo Griffin here now to start occasionally. So he might want to just go ahead and sit him down once in a while towards the end of the season so he doesn't run out of gas. He's done it every time we've seen him. Last year, of course, the real barometer when he played every day.
His career average goes 282 in June, drops to 225 in July, 249 in August, 244 in September. Consistently, each year he's dropped off in the hot summer months.
And that's not really that unusual, simply because fatigue catches up to everybody.
And no problems in May, though. Base hit to right field. First and second with one out for the Blue Jays. They trail 2-0 and have something going here in the 7th inning thanks to the bottom of the order.
Cito Gaston has always had a lot of confidence in Manny Lee's ability to hit. He hits a good fastball to the outside part of the plate, and I think that's another direct result of Manny Lee working with Larry Heisel, reminding him that all he's got to do is put the ball in play down in the order. He's gone to a heavier bat. There's Dennis Powell, a left-hander, Jeff Nelson, the right-hander, starting to throw. Only the 5th hit given up by Dave Fleming.
Now he's into a real tough part of the order. Devon White is 2 for 2 with a walk tonight. And it's ball 1 to him. 7 2/3 innings is the longest outing this season for Dave Fleming. Gone 6 1/3 so far.
Two base hits and a walk tonight. You can see his average starting to creep up where it should be. Showing a little more patience recently.
Comebacker. Fleming quickly goes to second for 1. Double play. Big double play for Dave Fleming, and he started it himself and didn't hesitate for a flash when the ball came back to him on the mound. That's composure. And so he holds on to his 2-0 lead as we move to the 8th inning at Skydome in Toronto. This is Labatt's of Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Next Thursday night, after they finish up with the Minnesota Twins and just before they play the Chicago White Sox, the Blue Jays on their way to Chicago will stop in Winnipeg to play the NBI, the National Baseball Institute. The number on the screen is one you can phone to pick up tickets for this event that includes a Dave Winfield clinic and a home run hitting contest. Good old Winnipeg. What are you laughing at?
You talk just like me.
Harold Reynolds, leadoff hitter against Todd Stottlemyre. 8th inning. Mariners lead 2-0. So Stottlemyre's into another game, it would appear, after those middle innings when he struggled. He retired the side in order in the 7th. See what he can do here against the leadoff hitter in the 8th. 2 balls and a strike now. Now 3-1, and perhaps he hasn't entirely rated himself. Wayne Ward loosening up at the bullpen, had a night off last night.
Looks like he's just about ready to, should they decide to go to it. He and Hanky both had the night off.
Ball 4, 5th walk of the night given up by Stottlemyre. Leadoff man's aboard in the 8th. And the Blue Jays will be careful here. They don't want to fall any further behind at this point in the game because they're running out of innings.
One thing Cito does, and the players can never complain about it, he always gives the players a chance to work out of things. He's not too quick. But tonight with 5 walks, I wouldn't think this would be a quick hook by any means. He's down 2-0, doesn't want to go any further down, and he's messing with the number 2 hitter in the lineup here.
He gave Stottlemyre a chance to come out and start the inning.
Sure did. And he's got a fresh Wayne Ward down there who enjoyed the night off last night. And he's going to go to him. Stottlemyre really battled, allowing just 3 hits, but the control let him down tonight. 5 walks cost him. 2 of those walks come across the score.
115 pitches, a 3-hit outing, but he's trailing 2-0. And is responsible for the runner on first base, Harold Reynolds. Then Wayne Ward comes into the ball game, making his team-leading 16th appearance of the season, and Stottlemyre flips the ball to him and heads for the dugout. His night's work complete. Well finished anyway. This pitching change is brought to you by Degree Antiperspirant. It's body heat activated to release extra protection when you really need it.
When life turns up the heat.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. I'm Jeff Green.
Can't wait to meet you.
There's Degree Antiperspirant. Because it's body heat activated, Degree releases extra protection when you really need it.
Hi.
Degree, your body heat turns it on.
27-year-old Dwayne Ward in his 16th appearance of the season on for Todd Stottlemyre with a runner on, nobody out, top of the 8th inning.
Well, you can see that he's had a great strikeout to innings pitch ratio. Anytime you're around 1, that's what you're looking for. 16th game of the year. He has had outstanding velocity throughout the early part of the season. He throws that breaking ball that really confused hitters. I'm not really sure what it is. It's a hard curveball. Todd Stottlemyre. He's really matured. He's upset with himself tonight because he didn't have control. The walks really cost him. But he gave up only 3 hits, and he really battled through some tough spots. I think back, he got the strikeout of Buhner with a couple of guys on after the Mariners scored 1 in the 6th. But he'll look back at this game on videos and try to figure out what cost him his control. After a perfect 3 innings, retired the first 9 batters he faced. I think this panel lost him for that next 3. Got it back in the 7th, went 1-2-3, but leadoff walk in the 8th, and that led to his removal.
Dwayne Ward's all warmed up. Edgar Martinez steps in, the number 2 hitter. Nobody out. Reynolds on first. And Ward checks in with Reynolds, who's back. Ball skipped up and Olerud got it. Mariners haven't defeated the Blue Jays this season. They lost 2 straight in their own ballpark, lost last night here. 0-3 against Toronto and leading 2-0. Up and in, tough pitch to bunt.
Very tough pitch to bunt. And if you do get a bat on it, liable to pop it up. Take a look at it, square around and get that back in your face. Bill Plummer trying to buy some insurance here, trying to move the runner. You know, the Mariners had a chance to win at least 2 of those ball games. 7-1 lead out in Seattle.
4-3 lead last night. Bunted foul, 1-1.
Well, they have the luxury of a 2-run lead. They might switch off, put the hit and run on now. Martinez, the ability to put the ball in play on the ground. But so tough have the wins been to come by that they might play it conservatively and use the sacrifice.
Martinez squares to bunt. 2 balls and a strike.
That Borders had a ball get by him early in the ball game. This one's not going to get by him. But once again, that is a tough pitch because it's so far out in front of home plate. And that breaking ball is thrown in the dirt so far away from home plate, you really don't know how it's going to react, whether it hits softly in that dirt and scoot, or whether it'll hit hard, take the spin, and bounce high.
Reynolds back into first.
Darrell Reynolds scored the first run of the ball game in the 4th inning on a ball that Pat should have blocked. The ball really wasn't a tough ball in the dirt. He just never really got down and blocked it and went back to the screen.
2-1. Bunted foul. 2-2. Martinez doesn't have a sacrifice this year and can't get the bunt down here.
In last night's game, needing the sacrifice. Bill Plummer had Harold Reynolds bunt with 2 strikes.
He got it done.
Edgar Martinez doesn't look real comfortable trying to bunt off Dwayne Ward.
Two balls, 2 strikes. He's swinging away. Foul by a couple of feet. Balls, 2 strikes, nobody out. Harold Reynolds on first base. Mariners lead 2-0. Trying to add to it here in the 8th. Fouled off. Here's another 2-2 pitch. And another foul ball.
Martinez has always been able to put the ball in play. Doesn't strike out an awful lot. Does that short, compact swing. Good candidate for a double play because he hits the ball so sharply on the ground.
Here we go again. Reynolds is off and running. Good jump in the air, and it's going to fall in front of Joe Carter. Reynolds is around second, on his way to third. Goes first to third on a bloop base hit to right for Edgar Martinez. And there's more trouble for the Blue Jays here in the 8th with runners at first and third and nobody out.
Well, after trying to put the bunt down, Martinez has a good at-bat. Really fights off a tough pitch from Ward. Look at Reynolds this time. He sees the ball's going to fall in there and goes right to third base. Last time he was hung up there when he didn't pick up the ball on the hit and run. That time he saw it in front of Carter, and he moves all the way to third.
Now Ken Griffey Jr.'s up. Tied for the team lead in RBIs with 19. Reynolds scored the last time he was at third on a wild pitch, and again Borders has to be careful in case that hard-breaking ball of Ward's gets in the dirt.
And he can throw it in the dirt. We've already seen that this inning.
Infield's in, trying to cut off this third run, potential third run that stands at third.
Borders going through the coverage should the runner at first take off, whether or not they're going to cover. Look at what Griffey does against Ward. He likes that hard stuff.
Ball 1.
Borders really had a funny reaction to this pitch. He was sitting up outside. He threw it down and inside. That surprised him. He was sitting on the outside corner, and Ward threw one down and in.
There'll be a meeting on the mound. Lee, Alomar, Borders all there.
This is over signals. The infielders have to know which pitch Ward is throwing so they can position themselves accordingly.
Borders may well have said, I don't know what he asking me for.
Well, that's a good point, because even though you know what pitch is coming, if it's in the opposite location, the defense could be out of position. Call for an outside fastball. They throw it inside. The left-hand hitter's got a chance to pull it, and Alomar and Lee might be out of position.
Reynolds and Martinez on the corners. Griffey fouls off the pitch, a ball and a strike. Eighth inning, nobody out, and the Mariners threatening to break this game wide open with the middle of their order. Up here, no outs, runners on to work with. Dwayne Ward trying to shut him down, keep his team in this ball game.
Dwayne Ward's a strikeout pitcher who needs a couple of strikeouts right now.
Sure does. 1 ball, 1 strike pitch. Strike 2 to fastball, 1-2.
There are situations throughout the course of a game where you just really need a strikeout. And this is one of them. First and third, nobody out. You're already down by 2, and you got to save these runs.
Now the 1-2 pitch. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Here's that 2-2 count again that we've talked about throughout the evening, where the pitcher has a chance to go at the hitter. Really try and blow one by him and get the strikeout. He doesn't want the count to go full here. Runners first and third. Mitchell's on deck. Popped up. This will be in medium, shallow left field. Bell makes the catch, and Reynolds can go nowhere. Ball comes into Gruber, first and third with 1 out now. And Mitchell's up.
Grady Anderson's RBI single still holding up with Mike Mussina on the mound for the Baltimore Orioles. That's Alex Fernandez against him for the White Sox. Tough pitching matchup for Grady Anderson. He's off to a fast start. Among the leaders in RBIs, you wouldn't expect that. That's his 26th RBI. Just 5 behind Mark McGwire, former Blue Jay Junior Felix with 29 ribbies. How about that?
Mike Mussina's trying to go 5-0 tonight.
Go out and get his baseball card.
Yeah. He and Juan Guzman, if you can find one. Ball 1 to Mitchell. Guzman pitches tomorrow against Clay Parker in game number 3 of this series. Guzman's 5-0. Sunday to complete the series, it's Jimmy Key and Randy Johnson in a left-handed battle. The right-hander here is Dwayne Ward. The right-handed hitter is Kevin Mitchell. 1-0 pitch. 2-0. Oh, and inside the last pitch from Ward. Reynolds at third. Martinez at first.
Well, the last time Mitchell was at the plate, they pitched around him, and Tino Martinez came up with an RBI single. This time they don't have the luxury of an open base.
Ball 3.
Tino Martinez with that clutch base hit. 2-out base hit to center. Drove in Edgar Martinez for the second run.
Itching for a chance to get up there with the bases loaded. 3-0 count. Mitchell took 3-1. $50,405 here tonight at the start of a long weekend, the Victoria Day weekend. Seeing a good ball game. Three ones fouled off, and Ward's fighting back. The count is full.
Full count, first and third, 1 out. Edgar Martinez can start on the pitch. And if there's a ground ball hitting the infield, they'll score a run. They won't have the ability to turn that double play. Now they're going to draw the infield in just because of that reason. If he goes, they'll still try to cut the run off the plate. Trying to cut down that runner.
Keep the game at 2-0. 8th inning. 1 out. There goes Martinez. Foul ball.
Because of the full count, the Blue Jays infield can't play back. Martinez is running. They won't have any chance to turn two, so they've got to come in. If they get the ground ball, go home.
Pitch. Runner's going. He struck him out. Martinez is on second, but now there's 2 out. Runners at second and third. Mitchell has struck out.
Matchup of 2 power players, but this time Dwayne Ward wins it with a strikeout. He blows that fastball right by Kevin Mitchell. Well, that's a big strikeout there. He's a strikeout pitcher that needed one and got it. Now he just needs 1 more out to strand these 2 runners.
Tino Martinez is up, and they're going to put him on. Jay Buhner, right-handed hitter on deck.
Now Martinez has shown them in the last 2 nights that he's a capable hitter, and they're going to put him on with a base open. Play the percentages, and it's the right move with Jay Buhner on deck. Like to give your pitcher the best possible matchup.
So Buhner, the right fielder, is up. He struck out twice against Stottlemyre, singled in between those strikeouts in the 2nd and the 6th. Bases are loaded, 2 away. A pivotal point in the ball game. Buhner could break it open, and the Blue Jays could stay right in it. Foul ball, strike 1.
Now that was a good fastball. They really got that one in on Buhner's hands.
So he went inside with a fastball fouled off, but 0-1. What did he do here? Goes outside. It's a ball and a strike.
With Dwayne Ward, you don't really concern yourself so much with location because he's got such a live fastball. He throws it 93, 94 miles an hour. You don't want him thinking about quarters of the plate. You want him to think about at least halves, maybe.
1-1 pitch. Short hop by Kelly Gruber. Nice play by the third baseman. He gets the force at third. And Dwayne Ward pitches out of a jam that he helped create. It's 2-0. The Mariners lead. They could get no more with the bases loaded in the 8th. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th inning. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Todd Stottlemyre's night is over. He was outstanding for the first 3, had trouble in the next 3. Out of the game in the 8th inning. There's his line.
Well, control just really the undoing of Todd Stottlemyre tonight. 5 walks, only 3 hits. The flip side of it for the youngster Dave Fleming. 7 innings pitched, 5 hits. He's walked 5, but has been able to induce the double play ball. Got a double play in the 7th to get out of that inning.
A huge double play it was after he'd walked the man, given up a base hit. Bullpen was up. He initiated the double play. 2-0 he leads, and that double play keeps him in this ball game. Ball and a strike to Alomar. Fly ball right center field. Buhner's running hard. Can't get to the ball. It's over the wall. A ground rule double for Roberto Alomar to lead off the 8th. Buhner made an outstanding play earlier in the night, tracking down a Dave Winfield ball, and he almost got to that one.
What an effort by Buhner. Let me tell you, folks, that is not a soft landing right there. Comes to a screeching halt. Ball bounces over the wall. Right in no man's land. Outstanding effort by Jay Buhner. He gave it everything he had. He just came up short. These outfielders know how hard that turf is. Takes an awful lot to dive on it. Now Bill Plummer is making a slow walk out to the mound.
Dennis Powell and Jeff Nelson have been up in the bullpen for a second time. Lead-off double for Roberto Alomar. And just seconds after it happened, Wayne Ward's strikeout of Kevin Mitchell and getting the ground ball from Jay Buhner looked so big here because the Mariners failed to score with the bases loaded in the 8th, and now the Blue Jays can bring the potential tying run to the plate in the bottom of the 8th inning. That'll be it for Dave Fleming, and another fine outing for this 22-year-old leader of the staff, and Jeff Nelson is on.
Nelson worked in last night's ball game. Now he'll try to bail out young Dave Fleming, who really pitched himself proud. He's looking for his 5th straight win, and he has put the Mariners in just that position now. But Jeff Nelson will try to hold it so they can get to Mike Schooler, the closer.
This has really been the problem part of the game for the Seattle Mariners, trying to get to that closer and then get him to hold on to the lead. Jeff Nelson is on for Dave Fleming. This pitching change is brought to you by Black & Decker's new line of power tools for the serious do-it-yourselfer. You'll never outgrow them.
With 12 amps of power, nothing stops Black & Decker's new circular saw with auto stop, except an electric brake. From the serious do-it-yourself line of power tools, you'll never outgrow them.
Long, tall Jeff Nelson, 6 foot 8 inches tall, 225 pounds, from Baltimore, Maryland. Right-hander on the mound to take over from the lefty, Dave Fleming.
Nelson 0-1 on the season. He's a power pitcher they project as a setup guy later on, and he has pitched so well that Bill Plummer will use him right now as a setup man for Mike Schooler. Sinking fastball, sharp breaking slider. He worked in last night's ball game. Came on in the 8th after Calvin Jones gave up a home run to Devon White in the 7th, and then Nelson worked the final 2 outs of the game. He got Derek Bell and Pat Porter's in his 2/3 of an inning. Joe Carter going back to check with Larry Heisel on the pitches, just to make sure they remind each other what Nelson throws.
And what Nelson threw to Carter.
Well, that's what Larry Heisel has done with that computer program. He's tracking all the pitches that his hitters are seeing. Pitch counts, location, velocity, speed, and break. Always important. Not a very in-depth book on Jeff Nelson because he's just arrived in the big leagues, but they'll go with what they have.
And because Nelson didn't pitch to Carter last night and didn't pitch in the series in Seattle, they'll just have to go on what he threw to other hitters. Normally, as this team goes around and sees every team for a 2nd and 3rd time, Heisel will be able to tell Carter what pitchers threw to him. Alomar on second, Nelson to Carter, fouled off the first pitch. 0-1.
Boy, you got to turn it up a notch after facing a left-hander who didn't throw as hard as Nelson, and Carter really got surprised by that high fastball.
Nice contrast for the Mariners.
When you go to the bullpen, you like the reliever to have better stuff than the starter that was leaving.
Carter hits the ball in the air to left field. Mitchell running over. He'll make the catch. 1 away. Come on, David! You have to think that everybody in the Mariners ball club right now is a little uneasy. They've blown some leads. Few of them. Twice to the Blue Jays. They won't be able to relax at all till this one is over.
Fouls a left-hander, the closer on the right-hander Mike Schooler. Had a couple of horrible nights. First one started by this man right here, grand slam, home run in the 9th to provide the winning run. And that huge comeback. Blue Jays were down 7-1. Winfield's grand slam put them up 8-7.
Winfield's 0 for 2 with a walk tonight. In fact, is 0 for the series, although he walked and scored last night. Ball 1 from Jeff Nelson. Tight, 2-0.
Jim, we've heard Winfield's thoughts on that grand slam he hit. He was sitting on the bench sizing up the situation as it was building and building. He's the type of hitter you want to play in a situation like this. You're down by 2. He represents the tying run. He's thinking about hitting the home run, and he's thinking about a pitch he can do it on. Something low out over the middle of the plate. He'll be awfully selective.
Nelson staying in tight to him, 3-0.
Switches the signs.
3-0 pitch. Taken for a strike, 3-1.
A little bit of respect there. A 3-0 slider to Winfield. That's Sinatra touching his helmet, shin guard, chest protector. That's switching up the signs so Alomar can't relay anything to the hitter at the plate. That will change the indicator. Which pitch is the hot pitch?
Strike called on Dave Winfield, 3-2.
Starts this ball off the plate inside. Winfield feels it goes around the plate. Darryl Cousins said it caught the inside corner. He's got to throw another slider after going 3-0, 3-1 with the slider.
Swatted on the ground, out of the reach of Vizquel. Around third, coming home to score is Alomar. It's a one-run ball game. Single and an RBI for Dave Winfield.
It's tough to trick a veteran hitter like Winfield. He got the slider 3-0. He got it 3-1. He had to figure that he was going to get another slider 3-2. He doesn't hit it well, but you can see he stays back and guides it up the middle by diving Omar Vizquel. Picks up the RBI. Look at Alomar. It's a good jump. Vizquel was late on the ball. Base hit on a 3-2 hanging slider, and Winfield will give way to the pinch runner.
Rob Ducey comes into the ball game if he uses a pinch runner. The last time he was in a ball game, he was in a situation like this as a pinch runner and scored.
You know that base hit by Winfield, Vizquel didn't react real well to it. But I think he saw the fact that it was a hanger and expected Winfield to pull it. Vizquel saw where the ball was way inside, and he was anticipating it hit to his right. Winfield fought it off and took it up the middle for a base hit.
Kelly Gruber hits the ball up the middle, softly into the glove of Reynolds, and Ducey's back to first. 2 away. Tying run at first base. It's Rob Ducey, who hasn't been in a ball game in the last 14, and he's on as a pinch runner. Left-handed hitter coming up. John Olerud and Plumbers making the trip to the mound.
He's got Dennis Powell ready, and he calls for him.
Yep. He'll come in to face Olerud, and if he gets him, that'll be it. And Schooler will be on in the 9th. That's the way it would work if Bill Plummer gets his way, and Dennis Powell does his job.
Well, Dennis Powell comes on in a situation where Bill Plummer doesn't expect Cito Gaston to pinch hit. Jeff Nelson give up a 3-2 base hit. That run will be charged against Dave Fleming. There you go. Larry Heisel at work with John Olerud, going over Powell's pitch selection. Having a quick look at the history of Dennis Powell. Reminding John Olerud just what to look for. You know, went too many years back when the hitters kept their own book. They all had a book in the locker reminding them who they hit well, who they had trouble with, what each pitcher threw. Now Larry Heisel's taking it out of their hands. He's doing it themselves. He's doing it for them.
Lefty Dennis Powell to face a lefty hitter, John Olerud.
They didn't see Powell in Seattle in that abbreviated series up there.
Now in this situation, Olerud stays in the ball game. He hadn't been starting against left-handers on the road. Pat Tabler was getting the call as Olerud was in a slump. Until he got to California, and in Anaheim, Jim Abbott was the left-handed pitcher. John Olerud stayed in the ball game because he's been fairly successful against Abbott in the past. On that night, he went 0 for against Abbott. He started last night and tonight against lefties and hasn't got a hit. And Cito Gaston will stick with it, with Pat Tabler sitting on the bench.
Cito pretty much will stick with his starters. He's got a very good pitch hitter on the bench, Pat Tabler, who knows that his shot would come against Powell, but this is his opportunity right here, and it doesn't look like he's going to get a shot as John Olerud gets to stay in the game and face Dennis Powell.
At this point in the season, the Blue Jays have only used 8 pinch hitters. They haven't had a pinch hit. Tabler has the only RBI for a pinch hitter, and that was on a bases-loaded walk. Olerud up the middle. Reynolds backhands it, gets the ball to second for the force just in time. One pitch for Dennis Powell, and he got the job done against John Olerud, and the Mariners cling to a 1-run lead through 8.
Hal Reynolds comes up with a nifty backhanded play, flips to the shortstop just in time to force Rob Ducey, and Dennis Powell gets the job done.
An inning to go, and it's a 1-run ball game. The Mariners out in front. This is Labatt's Blue Jays baseball on TSN. Now time for another update. Here again, Vic Crowder.
Hello again, everybody. The Baltimore Orioles starting the day 1.5 games behind the Blue Jays in the American East as they play the White Sox. Top third, Brady Anderson singles through the right side. Leo Gomez will round third. Throw is in time, but Ron Kargovice can't hang on. And it is 1-0 for the O's. 7th inning now. Baltimore scratches out another run. Mark McLemore singles to center. Joey Orsulak will score to make it 2-0 Orioles. So they can pick up a full game if they go on to win it. The Blue Jays lose. They're playing the 7th in Chicago. King Haven's Alley Deed continues to be the second choice of the bettors in tomorrow's Preakness at Pimlico. Right now listed at 9-2. Unfortunately, we'll start from the 12 hole in the 14-horse field. Derby winner Little E.T. still the favorite.
To the 9th inning. Skydome in Toronto. It's a 2-1 ball game. The Blue Jays finally got a run in the 8th inning. And now the Mariners are back out in the 9th against Dwayne Ward, trying to scratch out a little more insurance. They failed in the 8th inning when they got the bases loaded off the combination of Stottlemyre and Ward. They couldn't push a run across. Bases loaded. And a ground ball from Jay Buhner ended the inning. So now Ward, with a clean slate, faces Pete O'Brien to lead off the 9th inning. O'Brien's 0 for 3 tonight. Couple of fly balls to center field and a ground ball. Outside ball 1 from Ward. Home run hasn't been a factor in this ball game as the count goes to 2-0, and it usually is when these teams play. Each of them have given up 36 home runs this season. Popped up. One out. Number 8 hitter Omar Vizquel is up. There's a base hit for Vizquel.
You don't want a dirty night uniform.
Vizquel looking for a first pitch fastball, gets it from Ward, takes it the opposite way, hits it right through the hole at third base into left field. 1 out single for the Mariners shortstop.
His first hit of the night, the Mariners' 5th hit of the night. And second off Wayne Ward. Matt Sinatra's 0 for 3. Runners going. The pitch was fouled off as Sinatra threw the bat at him.
Out of play, out of play.
Well, they put the hit and run on so far away from Sinatra, he has to protect the runner. Throws the bat at the ball, just gets a piece of it, fouls it off.
The count. There goes the runner. Sinatra hits the ball in the air to center field. Vizquel is on his way back to first as the ball comes in from Devon White, who made the catch 2 away. 2 out. Vizquel at first base in the top of the order, and Harold Reynolds at the plate against Wayne Ward. We look ahead to the bottom of the 9th inning and last chance for the Blue Jays. Derek Bell, Pat Borders, and Manny Lee, bottom third of the order, due up, likely against Mike Schooler. Strike called. Oh, 1 count. There goes Vizquel. Pitch out. Borders with the throw. Got him. They guessed right and gunned him down to end the top of the 9th inning. And that's been working well for Pat Borders, and he has reason to smile. 2-1 ball game. Last chance for the Blue Jays coming up. This is Labatt's Blue Jays Baseball on TSN. Derek Bell due up in the 9th is 1 for 21 since his return from the disabled list. There are pinch hitters, people who could hit, including Candy Maldonado, who was on a 7-game hitting streak, hitting .370 when Bell came back and he sat down.
It was one of those things where you still want to see what Derek can do. We all know that he's, a tremendous player, and he's going to be some kind of player when he's developed. It's tough because, you were starting to hit the ball well and really feeling like the player or the hitter that you can be. But at the same time, Cito told me just, try to stay ready and bear down with him. I know that it was very tough to be in that position, but You know, I appreciate what Cito has done with me, and you know, you always have to look at the positive things that what got you here and the opportunity that he gave me, even so when I was going through that slump. So now, you know, you try to even it up and see what happens.
A great positive attitude. Mike Schooler to Derek Bell. Swings at the first pitch, ground ball, one away. Positive attitude from Candy Maldonado, but you couldn't blame him if he was a little fidgety and uneasy about not being at the plate in that situation or getting a shot.
Mike Schooler's on to try to close the door on the Blue Jays here. He has had a bit of a nightmare lately. Started by the Blue Jays when Dave Winfield hit that grand slam off him. Then the next night against the Tigers, he gave up a 3-run homer in the ninth. 5 runs in the 9th inning in that outing. A couple more fastballs coming than we saw last time we saw him. Schooler missed the first half of last year with shoulder problems. He's just now getting confidence in his fastball. He just doesn't believe it's good enough to get by. Greg Myers has a bat in the on-deck circle.
Left-handed hitter getting set to go for Manny Lee. Pat Borders has a base hit to right, tying runs aboard against Schooler in the 9th. Mike Schooler goes for a long walk up behind the mound, takes a couple of deep breaths, and heads back up onto the hill.
Well, here's that fastball trying to go away from Borders. It runs to the middle of the plate. He strokes it in the hole on the right side of the infield. Alfredo Griffin comes on to run for Borders. He represents the tying run. Borders with his first hit of the night finishes up 1 for 3 with a walk.
And it'll be Greg Myers at the plate.
Now, Schooler's a legitimate closer. He saved 33 and 30 for the Mariners in a couple of years. There's a pretty good fastball. It's going to take him a while to regain his confidence. He's 0-3 with a 7.90 ERA. Ouch. Got a good arm. As I mentioned, he's just trying to regain the confidence in that fastball. Goes fastball, slider.
Greg Myers' first pinch hitting performance of the season.
Myers had a big hit in that inning when they came back out in Seattle.
He hasn't played in the ball game since then.
Myers doubled to right to start the inning off in the 9th inning when Winfield finished things off with his grand slam. The hit didn't come against Schooler. It came off Calvin Jones.
2 balls and a strike now to Greg Myers. He gets some encouragement from Harold Reynolds. Pat in the back. Go get him.
Well, he needs that now. Captain of the infield coming in said, hey, we believe in you. Throw it over. We'll turn 2. Get you out of this thing.
Myers hits a sky-high pop-up. Reynolds settling underneath it. 2 away. Schooler goes out for another walk. This is a team that's lost 13 of 15. 3 straight on a road trip. Has the worst earned run average in the American League. You can understand how badly they need to hold on to this and win.
Bill Plummer's trying to find something positive to build on. Mike Schooler needs it. The Mariner players need it. He needs it. He's gone through a tough 2.5 weeks. Seen his club win just 2 out of the last 15 games. This guy led to his undoing last night when he homered in the 7th inning. The difference in the ball game, a 2-run shot.
Griffin leading off first. Strike 1 to White. Stay tuned following the game for the TSN Turning Point for Armor All.
White got an inside forkball off Jones. Let's see if Schooler tries to stay away from him. Jones tried to get White on the forkball. It broke down and into him, and he hit the 2-run homer. Just look at Sinatra way off the plate outside.
Strike 0-2. Schooler's a strike away from save number 6. Here's his 0-2 to Devon White. Ground ball, Omar Vizquel, and that's the ball game. They get the force at second. Schooler gets his 6th save, and the Mariners have won just 3 of their last 16 ball games, and tonight's winner, Dave Fleming, has won them all.
And there's a lot of smiles and glad handing going on, and that guy right there is really pleased that he's back.
Their first win over the Toronto Blue Jays this season after losing 3 straight. The final score in a nail-biter. Mariners 2, Blue Jays 1. This is Labatt Blue Jays baseball on TSN.